machine. I wasn't always just a single shade, a palette full of gray in reverie. And I can burn it brighter than the sun. I have a golden gun inside of me. Don't box me in, don't, or I'll leave. I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else. And if I fall behind, ignoring all the signs, and if I lose the fight, I still rage against the night. Don't box I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Thursday stream. I almost said Tuesday. It is Friday Junior, folks. The weekend is basically here. Sorry about the late start there. We had work being work, folks. Heat, how's it going? Quad Bennett, welcome. Good to see you, everybody. Michael Hasser, welcome. Folks, today we're going to take it easy. We're going to take it easy and try to end on time. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for hanging out, and I appreciate you guys being here. Before I get started, folks, the usual disclaimer. If you enjoy the content and you want to help support the channel, there are many different ways. Keep liking the stream on the YouTube. I see you guys. There are 259 of you that have subscribed on the YouTube. One more and it makes 260. So, there is that. And join the Discord, folks. Join the Discord. There's lots of awesome people there. And in a couple of weeks, we will be doing movie night. I have good news in North Carolina. Oh, we will be talking about that. Cami Kastu, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Mouselander, welcome. Heat, how's it going? That's right, folks. On the YouTube, keep liking the stream. I see you. I see you. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, let me get the music set up here. A little background music. Friday Junior, indeed. It is Friday Junior, folks. Movie night not this weekend, but next. Exactly. Not this weekend, but the next one. Correct. Correct. All right, folks, let's get started. We have we have a bombshell. A bombshell of a story that just dropped this morning from North Carolina. Regarding the Republican nominee for governor. Spoiler alert. It's probably exactly what you think it is. Yeah. All right, folks, let's kick things off. Let's go. Yeah, please note that the next article may be distressing. Oh, no, wait. Save that one for last, Michael Hassler. We saved that one for last. We saved that one for last. Oh, actually, there might be another story that requires that. I'll make sure to point it out. Yeah, that story is going to be for last.
We often hear about an October surprise that happens every
But I'm happy.
presidential election where something unexpected occurs that affects the presidential race to varying degrees. For example, in early October of 2016, we learned about Trump's infamous Access Hollywood tape. And then in the same month later on, we learned that then FBI Director James Comey announced that he was reopening his investigation into Hillary Clinton for her use of a private email server. And it's debatable how much these scandals impacted the 2016 election, if at all. But when the race is as close as this one is, it's not unreasonable to worry about unexpected variables that could come into play and potentially change the outcome of the election for better or worse. So, without further ado, I want to talk about potential things that could realistically happen that could impact November's election and potentially even change the outcome of the election. So some of these hypothetical scenarios are going to work in Kamala's favor and others will work in Trump's favor. So let me talk about some of them that come to mind. Number one, Biden steps down due to an unexpected medical emergency, and Kamala Harris is then sworn in as 47th president ahead of the election. I think that this is unlikely at this point, but Joe Biden is 81 years old, and when you're in your 80s, your health can unexpectedly take a turn for a worse at any time for a number of reasons. I mean, we've all had loved ones who have gone through medical emergencies out of nowhere, right? And if Biden is no longer able to serve as president, Kamala would obviously become the president since she's now the VP. Now, in terms of who this would hurt or help, I actually think that it would help Kamala. She automatically gains the incumbent advantage, and Americans might not necessarily want to kick her out of office before giving her a chance to really do anything. Now, there are some downsides to this. As president, she wouldn't be able to campaign as vigorously, and it might blunt some of the momentum among people who really want to see the first female president elected, because once it happens, I think that that initial excitement of seeing her win kind of goes away, right? So the enthusiasm kind of disperses in some ways possibly. But then again, those same people would be galvanized because if they were excited about the first woman president, they'd be gutted if the first female president only served for 2 to 3 months. It would be awful. So overall, I do think that this would help Kamala Harris, even though there are some downsides. She would be fully in charge, Biden would be completely out of the picture, and she would be the one who can immediately set the agenda. So there are a lot of benefits to that. But let's get to number two. An international incident occurs. Now, I'm keeping this purposefully vague because there's a range of things that could happen. It's a very big planet, but I think that the most likely scenario is a war in the Middle East, catalyzed by war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. And I say this because Biden's Israel policy has been an unmitigated disaster. He is breaking both U.S. and international law by supplying them with weapons that they're using to commit war crimes in Gaza. And to make matters worse, Netanyahu obviously wants Donald Trump to win and was on Fox News in early September undermining Biden on national television. He was saying a ceasefire deal isn't actually imminent, and that's humiliating for Biden. But Biden's decision to embolden him again and again and again, coupled with his refusal to use leverage to cut off weapons to Israel, as previous presidents have done, by the way, that could all blow up in his face at any time in a massive way. Or more specifically, it could blow up in Kamala's face when we're talking about the election. Netanyahu has already invaded the West Bank, and it's not unreasonable to think that he'd launch a ground invasion with Lebanon or possibly a hot war with Iran. It's all within the realm of possibility. And
Well, I mean, it's more likely that Israel would engage Hezbollah in Lebanon before getting into like a real war with Iran, because I mean, it's not entirely out of plausibility that Netanyahu would do this regardless, because it is in his best interest to keep conflicts going for as long as possible. So regardless, I think it's possible that he might decide to kick things off with Hezbollah.
if that happens, it would unquestionably pull the United States in, and it would be a disaster of epic proportions for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and Trump could easily exploit that catastrophe for his own political gain. Netanyahu could help him exploit that catastrophe for his political gain. They would both almost certainly attack Biden for not doing enough to help Israel and not being strong enough, and he'd also blame Biden for starting the war in the first place, which would actually be true. And there's a number of ways that Trump could use that to his advantage with the help of Netanyahu. So this could easily blow up in his face, Biden's face, and the only way to prevent this from happening is to cut off the weapons to Israel so they don't have the capacity to expand the war in that way. But we know Biden isn't going to even consider doing that. So what's left? Well, the only way for Kamala Harris to save face if this happens is she's got to break with Biden before this scenario unfolds. Otherwise, the stink of his failed policy is going to rub off on her. Now, at this point in time, it's clear that she doesn't want to publicly break with Biden, which is a bad move in my opinion. But we're getting leaked stories in the Washington Post from her team about how she would consider conditioning aid to Israel and challenge them more directly. And this is intended to assuage concerns of people who care about the genocide in Gaza, but it's just not good enough. I'm sorry, it's not good enough. A public break from Biden is the only thing that can save her ass should Netanyahu make matters worse. So this is a ticking time bomb, and Kamala would be wise to distance herself from Biden's failed policy here while she still can. Take that time bomb, throw it to Biden, and let it blow up in his face. Distance yourself from him so you're not viewed as to blame if Netanyahu expands this war. If Kamala Harris does not do this, and the worst case scenario does come to fruition, I think that it would unquestionably hurt her and help Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it should that if, and that's a big if, but it should that happen, yeah, I think it would benefit Trump. Redmond Berry, welcome. Iran is a big country, big population. Would Israel wage a full war against it in contrast to the strikes that have been going on for decades? I don't think so. I honestly, genuinely don't think so. I don't think that a conflict between, I don't think that a direct kinetic conflict between Iran and Israel is going to happen. I mean, I guess it could, but I don't see it. Asai Malaka, welcome. They've already bombed an Iranian consulate, true, and assassinated someone inside of Iran, also true, both of which are acts of war. Also true. Yeah. All of that is true. I just don't see that, I really just don't see, like, a full-on, like, real kinetic war between both of them. I don't see that right now.
But this brings us to number 3, a big signature policy push from Kamala. Now, this isn't necessarily what we think of when October surprise comes to mind. Nevertheless, it is something that could have a meaningful impact on the election. Listen, it's obvious that enthusiasm for Kamala Harris has died down a bit after the DNC convention. They didn't let a single Palestinian American speak. Then, to make matters worse, Kamala gave a disturbingly hawkish speech on foreign policy, and in her first interview as a presidential candidate, she sounded like a Republican on issues like fracking, immigration, foreign policy, and all of this has blunted her momentum. She had a lot of goodwill with the left simply because she's not Biden, but the honeymoon is over now. And that initial enthusiasm has tapered off, and the polls are starting to even out. The surge, for the most part, seems to be over. And if she wants to re-galvanize the Democratic Party's base, she needs to stop talking to Republicans and centrists for a minute and come back and try to court progressives again. And the way that she can do this is with a big policy proposal that would excite the base and increase turnout. Now, one way she can do this is by making it very, very clear that she will give the one thing to the base that they're asking for. She will break with Biden on Gaza. Even if she says, as president, I'm simply going to make sure that international law is respected, and she indirectly signals in some way publicly that she'll break with Biden on Gaza, I think she would immediately get a massive boost in states like Michigan. And the uncommitted voters there that she hasn't been able to win back would have a real reason to vote for her as opposed to a third-party candidate. But I mean, if she doesn't do that, she needs a Bernie Sanders type proposal. I'm talking something big, free college, total student debt cancellation, even something like a public option or marijuana legalization would do wonders in terms of exciting the base. Look, she would never...
Yeah, I think something like that would help. I think something like that. I mean, honestly, Redmond Barry, I think it's more likely that Netanyahu... It's more likely that Netanyahu starts stuff with Hezbollah than it is likely that something with Iran happens. I think it's first more likely that Netanyahu wants to expand the conflict with Hezbollah. But that's just my opinion.
Go for something like this, but if she came out with Medicare for All, something that she originally supported when she was running for president the first time, but then, she got too much criticism and ran away from it. If she came out with Medicare for All and had Tim Walz help her explain it, I think she would crush in this election cycle. Because even though all this talk of abolishing private insurance might sound scary to Democrats, normal people don't like their private insurance. In fact, we fucking hate our private insurance. And so if you explain to us that we no longer have to worry about insurance companies gouging us and that healthcare will be free at the point of service, I don't think she understands how powerful that would be. That is part of the reason why Bernie Sanders had so much momentum around his campaigns 2 times and all the way until he dropped out. It's because this is something that we've been wanting. The Democratic Party's base has been wanting this for decades. So if she came out with something like that,
what's prevented this from escalating so far is Iran's restraint. Yeah, undoubtedly.
Do wonders. But I mean, that's just a recommendation. She's not going to do that. You can, scale it down. Just, I'm going to cancel.
Like you were saying earlier, do you think that any other, that any country would suffer an attack within its own, imagine if there was a bomb within our borders and a high important person was assassinated within our borders, that we would have boots on the ground within 48 hours of that happening. So yeah, Iran's restraint has been remarkable, to say the least.
All student debt, I'm going to ask for a bill and I'm going to campaign on that. That would do wonders. But I think that the policies she's proposing now, to be fair to her, they're decent, and I'm glad that she's focusing on housing and the care economy, but I think that they're a little wonky for the average American. I think that she needs to go bigger. I think she needs to do something that is impactful yet simple. Just healthcare, public option, or Medicare for All, something along those lines. And it would put her over the edge, in my opinion, because right now, I think that she has killed the momentum by campaigning like a Republican. And Trump has also done the same because he's, pivoting to the center when it comes to abortion. And there's some pro-lifers, or not pro-lifers, forced birthers, to be clear, because they're not pro-life, they're pro-forced birth. But Trumpers are pissed off. But the problem is that when it comes to the Democratic Party, they win elections when their base turns out, when their base is excited. So she needs to excite the base, get people to get off their asses and vote. And she doesn't do that by pandering to centrists. She does that with a big policy that would change our lives. But let's get to number 4. Sudden economic anxiety due to a type of economic crash or change with a particular market or industry that abruptly threatens the livelihood of working Americans.
I love the Tic Tac picture. Healthcare and climate change are completely off the Democratic Party's agenda right now.
If this were to happen, it would hurt Kamala Harris because Biden is the incumbent, and incumbents always get blamed for economic problems. Although I think that if Kamala messages in a way that paints Trump as the incumbent, as she's been doing, she could mitigate some of the damage here. And I think that she's done a good job campaigning as if she's the challenger and Trump is the incumbent. And it doesn't seem like the Republican Party's attempts to tie Kamala to economic failures they're blaming on Biden is sticking. I mean, so far, I think she's done a good job at taking credit for the good and distancing herself from the bad when it comes to what Biden has been able to do or what he's being blamed for. But should something like this happen, messaging is going to be key here for Kamala Harris, but it's also going to be key for Trump. Although I will say Kamala is at a disadvantage because Republicans always have an advantage on the economy, according to voters, for some reason. I don't get it, but they all
Both those Tic Tac boxes look huge in Donald's. Tiny hands. Tiny hands, tiny brain. No campaign is presenting big policy announcements less than 2 months from the election. Well, to be fair, Kamala hasn't been campaigning for very long. What month is this? Like month 4, month 5? Right? It's about 5 months that she's been campaigning. When did she start for real? It's been a couple months at least.
always trust Republicans on the economy more than they trust Democrats. So there's a good chance that Trump would benefit from this. But let's get to number 5. Third-party candidates consolidate. So we saw Trump get a bigger bump after RFK Jr. dropped out and endorsed him because he was pulling more votes away from Trump than he was.
It's more like 1 month? Jeez, really? It's only been like, what, maybe 2? Really? It's been that little? Oh, man. It feels like... It feels like longer. It feels like a lot longer. It feels like twice as long as that. July 21st? Oh, so we're just barely approaching 2. Wow, it feels like twice that. It feels like twice that, to be honest. Holy cow, how time is completely warped by all of this.
Was from Kamala. Now, when it comes to third parties, you're always going to have third party voters that reliably vote third party no matter what. And they would likely just stay home if there wasn't a third party on the ballot. But if you assume that some third party voters would actually vote Republican or Democrat if the third party option wasn't available, we tend to see libertarians pull more from Republicans, around 3%, than the Green Party, who pulls like 1% away from Democrats. If you take the logic that they are pulling votes from Democrats. I think it's true to a certain extent, but overstated usually. So it's usually overall a greater net loss for Republicans when it comes to third parties. This election, though, is different. Now we have a libertarian candidate in Chase Oliver who's only polling at around 1%, and we have 2 left-wing candidates in Jill Stein and Cornel West polling at 1% and about 0.6% respectively. So this time it's a net loss for Democrats, which means Kamala has a bigger deficit to make up in swing states than Biden did in 2020. But here's what could change. The left-wing candidates end up consolidating in some way. Say Cornel West hypothetically dropped out and endorsed Jill Stein, or he endorsed Kamala Harris. This could balance out the spoiler effect and effectively cancel it out altogether. Cornel West did say that Kamala's campaign offered him a position in her administration if he dropped out and endorsed her. Now, if he took himself out of the equation, the small portion of his votes would likely shift to Jill Stein, but some would also shift to Harris, and some of them would probably stay home, but it's something that could change the race, especially where it's really close in a state like Michigan. But another hypothetical change is that Chase Oliver starts to poll better and gets his numbers up to where Joe Jorgensen or Gary Johnson was in 2016 and 2020. That would bring the third party situation back to homeostasis, and he would theoretically pull more votes away from Donald Trump than both Stein and West if he stays in the race. Or let's say a miracle happens and Biden is visited by an angel and he finally is convinced to cut off the weapons to Israel and actually does force Netanyahu to accept the ceasefire. Not going to happen, but just hear me out. If that happens, or if Harris chose to call for an arms embargo, then all of a sudden,
Oops, sorry. If that happens, I would call the race right there. If Kamala does that or Joe Biden does that, I would call the race right then and there. No questions asked. I would bet American dollars that if Kamala calls for like an embargo, a weapons embargo, she would win. She would win on the spot right there. I would immediately call it right then and there.
The third-party voters in swing states might rethink their protest votes because a lot of them are voting third-party specifically because they're dissatisfied with the Democratic Party's position here, particularly Arab Americans in states like Michigan, right? So if Biden or Harris undercut the appeal of third parties by adopting one of the policy appeals that is being made to these voters in these swing states by third parties, it would make a huge difference where it matters. So the third party situation could change. Don't know if it's going to, but it could change, and that would affect the race. Number 6, a Supreme Court justice dies. This would immediately regalvanize the Democratic Party's base. I think that the same would happen on the Republican side, albeit to a lesser extent. Worst case scenario, their supermajority for Republicans is just a simple majority, right? They can still live with that. But defending a potential loss if a liberal dies or gaining a seat if a conservative dies would absolutely get a lot of people off their asses to vote Democrat. In previous elections, I don't know that something like this would have as big of an impact. Scalia died in 2016, and I think it had a minimal effect on the overall election. But Americans are now hyper aware of everything that the Supreme Court is doing, from corruption to overturning Roe v. Wade. Americans have a renewed sense of the importance of the Supreme Court. So if an opening on the Supreme Court suddenly becomes available, that would likely be filled by the next president. I think that this would disproportionately benefit Kamala Harris because more Democrats would care about this than Republicans. So, number 7, a new Trump scandal drops. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably rolling your eyes because there's nothing he can really do to turn off his base. But I'm not talking about a scandal that changes their minds. I'm talking about a scandal that loses him votes in battleground states where the margins are really thin with normies and swing voters. Now, I'm talking about something really nasty, not the typical Trump scandal of him saying something authoritarian and stupid, even though that is a big scandal. I'm talking about something bad, like him using a slur or threatening to use nuclear weapons or assassinate Democrats when he's in power. Something very, very big, out of the norm for Donald Trump. Something like that could have an impact. And even if it's a small impact, it could hurt him.
Maybe, although I don't know. You know, like, basically, like, the people that are going to vote for Trump, they're going to vote for Trump, right? Like, that's it. There's not really much that could change that. Filling Scalia's seat was a major factor in evangelicals accepting Trump. Yeah. Cognizant welcome. That's out of the norm. Yeah, like, I think he's saying particularly egregious, like more egregious than normal, but, like, I don't know. Trump could literally, like, do anything, and his cult will still vote for him, you know? It doesn't matter. This whole video feels like Mike just writing fiction disconnected from reality. Oh, well, yeah, this whole video is predictions. None of this whole video is like, it is just predictions and hypotheticals.
The problem is that every time he opens his mouth, it's a fucking scandal, so the bar for what qualifies as a Trump scandal in 2024 is very high. The man is a felon and a rapist, and not to mention literally tried to illegally overturn the last election and incited an insurrection to do just that. So a lot of people...
Yeah, but there's connection with the world I live in.
I think are desensitized to his shenanigans at this point. But with that being said, it's plausible that some new scandal raises some eyebrows, right?
Doubt it.
We don't know. It's possible. Normies are very fickle. So if a swing voter is leaning to Trump because of the economy and something new is at the top of their mind before they pull the lever...
No connection with the world I live in. We are definitely at the boiling frog stage of politics. Yeah.
That could change things. The same is true for Kamala Harris as well. Some scandal involving Kamala Harris could be big. Now, I think that...
Doubt it. Honestly, like, I just don't see um like even if that were true, like something came out with Trump, like that's not going to change that's not going to change much here. That's not going to change the equation here.
The problem is that the bar for what is considered a scandal for Kamala is much lower compared to Donald Trump, right? Because I think that even if it's minimal, like she lied in the past or whatever, which is bad, but I mean, if she lied, Republicans would take that and they blow it up. Whereas they can't really do that for Donald Trump, because if everything is a scandal, nothing is a scandal. So there's a problem there. It's a little bit lopsided in terms of what qualifies as a scandal, but nonetheless, if a new Trump scandal does pop up, I think that it could change things, and obviously the same is true for Kamala or Tim Walz. Now, last but not least, let's get to number 8. This one is dark, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think this was within the realm of possibility. Okay. If Kamala wins, Trump's cronies in swing states, they could try to delay the certification until January 5th, and let's say Georgia's electoral votes in this scenario.
Yeah, that is actually more than plausible. That is more than plausible as far as how things can, as far as like things changing the outcome of the 2024 election. That is far more plausible than the majority of things that have been said here.
Aren't included in the final count, and that was the one state that made the difference, and that was enough to sway the election to Trump. Even if she wins, she could lose. Perhaps one state submits fake electors and a Trump judge accepts them in court as legitimate, and Congress is forced to certify them for some reason.
Not for some reason. I think it's a pretty it's a pretty, like, I could totally see that happening. Whether it gets challenged and back and forth and run through the court system, the damage is done. The damage is done. Whether you think that that's absurd, make no mistake, these people will try that. It seemed that they had a half-baked plan in the last election, but they are much more organized and understanding of how this works this time around, and you could see that. You could tell by how they're putting poll workers, and by the way that they're changing the way some places, some counties run their elections. You have more pro-Trumper election denial people in those very important positions. That is 100% guaranteed to happen. I mean, like, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt, like, that even if, like, that, I wouldn't even be surprised. I wouldn't even be surprised that if Trump wins, even if Trump wins, that they will still challenge results in the areas that he didn't win. Does that make sense? Like, I would not put it past these people to challenge the results, even if he won in places that he didn't.
Something like that. I'm catastrophizing a bit here, but Trump coup is number 8. Now, a lot would have to go...
No, I don't know if that's catastrophizing, because, like, maybe I'm wrong, but, like, the way I understand catastrophizing things is, like, it's kind of like making an exaggeration, but this is this is actually a very real path that could happen. In fact, I myself expect this to happen. And if Trump loses, whew.
Go wrong to get to the point where the election is actually stolen. He will try to steal it, but a lot must go wrong for Trump to successfully steal the election. But they tried it once, they're going to try it again, and I think it's something that we should be prepared for.
Yeah, I think that not only are they going to probably try it again, but I think that they're they're much more organized in how that's going to come about. Yeah.
Remember, Trump is an authoritarian, and we can't put anything past this man. And I have a video about this that I put out earlier in the week where we talk about what average citizens can do in the event this horrifying scenario becomes a reality. But it's one thing that I think we need to keep on our minds. We shouldn't go full doomer mode because of it, but we shouldn't bury our heads in the sand, right? Because anything can happen. So that is an event that can change the outcome of the election, theoretically speaking. Now,
raiding election officers' houses and stealing the election license to prevent them from participating in the election counting. Yeah, didn't that just happen? I think it was Texas. We talked about that. Didn't they do that in Texas?
That's just 8 scenarios. So there's a lot that can happen in a world with infinite possibilities in American politics in 2024. Crazier shit has happened, and so I think all of these things are within the realm of possibility. Now, my point in making this video is to emphasize that you should never get too comfortable depending on where we're at. If you look at polls and Kamala's doing good or Trump's doing bad, never just expect that that is going to definitely be the outcome, because a lot can change and things change fast when it comes to elections that are this close. Look, it's American politics and anything can happen. And I think that the takeaway that I want you to have is that you need to absolutely exercise your right to vote to help bring about the outcome that's best for the country, which would be obviously defeating Donald Trump. Voting is just a small tool that we have to effect change. It's not the end all be all, and the real work begins after the election. And I say this because regardless if Kamala or Trump wins, we're going to have to constantly exert pressure on them to do what we want. Although to me, Kamala is the adversary that I would rather have in the White House. But that's 8 things. Let me know if there's something that I didn't think about that you think is within the realm of possibility that we should look out for.
They're trying to fearmonger. Yep. I mean, they've been doing this for months now already. Like already, Trump is talking about, rigged, how things are going to be rigged. So, like, honestly, I think, like, the most possible scenario that was talked about is seriously, like, I think that these people would try the exact same plan to steal the election again. Whether or not it works, I don't know. But no doubt that they are going to try, and especially if the election is super close and Donald Trump loses. I expect that. If that's the outcome, where November 6th or 7th, we realize that the election is incredibly close and it gets called for Kamala, I totally expect that to happen immediately.
I'm standing in front of the headquarters of a company that manages $10.6 trillion. That's more than half the United States GDP. Last time, I covered the shady consulting group McKinsey, and you guys asked for one thing: BlackRock. So here we are. BlackRock is the subject of a lot of speculation online.
There is a robot that controls more wealth than any country on earth.
Really, the commander-in-chief is Larry Fink.
They have stock in 95% of Fortune 500 companies, and they've been hired by governments across the world to help manage financial crises and even just conduct normal operations. That means that pretty much any time you interact with the economy, working, buying stuff, driving a car, going to the bank, anything, you're interacting with BlackRock. But that $10.6 trillion isn't really their money. Don't worry, we'll come back to that. And they claim they're just passive investors, which seems harmless, right? While I love a good conspiracy, and I know there was a cornucopia on the Fruit of the Loom logo, How much of a conspiracy is this really? I wanted to get to the truth behind BlackRock and the other nearly identical asset managers, State Street and Vanguard, known as the Big Three. Are they actively controlling the world and shaping it in their favor? Or are they passive investors just riding the wave of American economic expansion?
Yeah, you don't think that like massive corporations like that don't exert some kind of influence? Yeah, of course.
Stay with me. We'll get to the spooky stuff soon, but first let's talk through some finance basics that give BlackRock their power. What an asset manager actually does, the main product they provide, index funds, their favorite loophole, passivity, and their position in our economy, the not at all terrifying sounding universal ownership. BlackRock is an asset manager, and the service they offer is taking a customer's money and making more money out of it. Their existence relies upon an important invention of the 70s.
This one I bet it's only $119.
More exciting, the index fund. It was pioneered by the first CEO of Vanguard, and it offers investors a way to invest in many stocks at once. So instead of betting a lot on a few individual companies, you bet a little bit on every company in the whole index, basically just the whole market itself.
The index at least steers a steady course.
It's like instead of betting on a single horse, you're betting on all the horses at once. And index funds are a form of mutual fund, the more general way people pool their money together to make big investments. But someone needs to be the one to pool all that money together and manage it, and that's an asset manager, i.e. BlackRock. Index funds and ETFs are their main products, and they're pretty similar. They're popular because they're lower risk, have more consistent returns, and are cheaper for asset managers because they don't have to pay a guy to place bets all day, which studies show they are not very good at.
Just ignore the folly of short-term speculation. It's absolutely a loser's game.
So if the market is up 7% today, so is your index fund. Instead of constantly buying and selling shares, which is what active investors do, BlackRock and these big asset managers buy a little bit of every company and just hold on to those shares basically indefinitely. This is called passive investing, a title that affords them a lot of legal leeway they otherwise wouldn't get. They own so much that it would be impossible for them to sell out of any one stock in one fell swoop.
When you think about passive, we can't sell a company as long as they're in the index.
Most of the money asset managers manage comes from institutional investors. Those are big pension funds, insurance companies, nonprofits, and university endowments. But while all the money they manage is in the hands of these big institutions, most of it actually comes from regular people. Public and private pension plans, 401k owners, college tuition, and anyone with insurance. This is your money, but it doesn't always come back to you. Nor do you get a say in the companies it gets invested in. While they want good returns on those investments, contrary to how we think about Wolf of Wall Street type investors, that's not actually their main goal. They make their profits from the fees they charge their clients, not from the returns on the money they invest. I spoke with Benjamin Braun, a professor of political economy at the London School of Economics. He's written a bunch of studies on asset managers' role in our economy and society.
The fees you earn if you're BlackRock increase when the market value of the assets you manage increases. You maximize your assets under management by winning over new clients and by getting the clients that you already have to give you more money.
When you have $10 trillion, you have to put them somewhere, and eventually that somewhere becomes everywhere.
Universal ownership refers to holding shares in the entire universe of firms listed on the stock market. The big three asset managers, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, hold a sizable but still relatively small stake in all listed corporations.
BlackRock is a 3 to 10% shareholder in all of these companies. This may not sound like a lot, but it's enough that selling all of it at once would likely crash that entire stock,
That's
kind of
wild.
locking them into the whole not selling passive thing.
How is this allowed? This feels like it shouldn't be a thing. They stole the idea from brokers. When you buy and sell stock, brokers charge like a penny. They do that against every transaction. It's like the office space penny steal scheme. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. Yeah, exactly.
5% in any individual company.
Just in like a massive scale. Yeah, we don't have regulation. Mob stuff. Yep. Lower the expense ratio, the better.
Is actually
Welcome to Ponder Monkey. Globus the Elder, welcome. Okay, but that's my stapler. Hey, I caught that reference. Right, they make a penny of every transaction, whether you win or lose. Right, exactly. They just do it on like a massive scale in every single stock. It shouldn't be allowed. See the 1970s.
Very significant, because if and when shareholdership is dispersed, 5% makes you, in all likelihood, the single largest shareholder in that company. That's why, for example, in a lot of academic studies, 5% is taken as a threshold for control. There's almost no difference between Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, and even a bunch of other asset managers in terms of their business model. So then you can start and wonder, okay, so if the big three together hold 25% of the shares in any individual company, then you're definitely above the threshold.
Let's zoom in on Amazon. The big three own 16% of all outstanding Amazon shares. Jeff Bezos only owns 9%.
In theory, universal owners should have an interest in maximizing profits in the long term across the entire economy. And that is not how they operate in practice.
The amount of stock you have determines the number of votes you get. BlackRock is almost always in the top 3, maybe 5 if they're feeling broke. So that is a lot of votes. And let's not forget, it's not BlackRock's money that's invested. It's your dad's pension fund and your insurer's massive pile of savings. It sounds crazy, but when you put your money in a pension fund, you sign away your voting rights to the pension fund manager. And then when the pension fund manager puts all their pension funds under an asset manager's control, they sign away all those votes to the asset manager. Kind of pyramid scheme vibes. And how do they actually use those votes? A 2017 study found that asset managers almost always voted with what the company executives recommended. And why are they always voting with company management? Back in the 80s, company managers used to spend company money on company things, like corporate jets, fancy offices, or occasionally paying their employees. And this made the investors sad because they wanted those profits. So they started offering company managers, in addition to bonuses and benefits, stock options. Executives' total pay was now forever tied to how much the company made.
They can push managers, corporate managers, to act more in the interest of shareholders, meaning in the interest of corporate profits, and do more to maximize corporate profits.
This funnels money back to investors who now include management and away from any hope of making companies work better or including employees in the profits that their labor created. Back in the day, like my grandparents' day, more regular people had stocks, and the idea was that every shareholder could vote on things like board elections, mergers and acquisitions, executive compensation, and once in a while, wages. Sort of like democracy for people with disposable income.
Government is the people's business, and every man, woman, and child becomes a shareholder with the first penny of tax paid.
In 1945, 94% of stocks were owned by households, but that's not really how it works anymore.
Reagan.
Today, households have more like 40% of the stock market, and about half of that belongs to the top 10%.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you.
Today, the top 1% own 50% of corporate equity and mutual fund shares, while the top 10% own 86%. Did you think this yellow part was everyone else? Nope. The tiny green part on the bottom is the least wealthy half of Americans.
You often hear this argument
Jesus. Yeah, that effing guy.
that what is good for shareholders is good for everyone, because especially in the US, where retirement assets are overwhelmingly invested in corporate equities, everyone is a shareholder. But that's simply not true. The bottom 50% virtually owns no shares at all. The vast majority of shares are held by the top 10%. And within that, even shareholdings are quite concentrated within the top 1%.
And while the strategies corporations choose because asset managers vote for them affect everyone, they only benefit half the population even a little bit and frequently hurt the other half, those without any shares at all. Take the example of worker pay. BlackRock and other asset managers play a huge part in wage stagnation.
If you're a corporation, you can increase profits only in so many ways, and you can always, in the short term, increase returns to shareholders by squeezing workers.
Right.
So this kind of Uber monopolization really hurts working people, consumers, and even small businesses. And this is where it gets interesting. There's evidence that this type of universal ownership is in part responsible for why everything is so expensive these days.
I mean, that wouldn't actually surprise me at all because, like, it's in their benefit.
For example, they have significant stakes in Nike, Adidas, Lululemon, and Under Armour. If one outperforms the other, it's the same from BlackRock's point of view. And sometimes it can even lose investors' money altogether if companies were to start lowering prices to compete.
That's the universal ownership logic.
Right, like competition? What? Competition? In part, like 80% part? No doubt. I mean, this just goes to show that, like, capitalism just, it really is not about competition at all. Not really. Not in the way that that they like to paint the picture, right?
In action, but it's also an anti-competitive logic in action. The fact that all 5 airlines, all the major banks.
Yeah, it's the airliners is like the first thing that I think about. It's when you hear people complaining that retail traders are actually saying the poor, they don't truly have the ability to run the stock market when they own so little. However, stocks like AMC and GME happened because some extremely wealthy people got caught and exploited. It's not retail traders causing chaos.
For example, in the US, have the same large shareholders creates a danger and a risk that these corporations will not engage in competition in the same way they would if they each had different shareholders. Because in that world, each shareholder would root for their company and would hope to outperform the market by the company they waged a bet on.
It's sort of like a neo-monopoly where companies don't even have to merge and buy each other anymore because they all send profits to the same guys no matter what. And their large stakes in basically every company affords them friends in high places. From just 2014 to 2015, BlackRock performed over 1,500 private engagements with the companies held in their portfolio. BlackRock reportedly believes that meetings behind closed doors can go further than votes against management, and they typically give management a year before voting against them. They also have a lot of friends in the government. There's a sort of revolving door between BlackRock, the government, and the international bodies that create monetary policy. Things like the US Treasury.
Yeah, again, no surprises there, to be honest. Finance is literally the cause of everyone's woes. Lee Spanner, it is BS.
Federal Reserve, the central banks of Canada, some European countries, and Sweden, as well as the International Monetary Fund and the World Economic Forum. Since 2004, BlackRock has hired at least 84 former government officials, regulators, and central bankers worldwide.
The intersection of politics and business has never been more ongoing.
Red flag.
Larry Fink himself.
Yeah, that's a massive red flag.
Is on the board of the WEF.
Good thing I don't have any money. Wait.
And even tried to get himself selected as Hillary Clinton's Treasury Secretary in 2016. And in 2008, they got themselves a pretty sweet deal.
Traders saying this is the craziest day they have ever seen in these markets. Veteran traders saying they've never seen anything like it.
In the aftermath, the government created the Financial Stability Oversight Council to oversee entities like BlackRock that control a lot of money but aren't banks. The FSOC pointed to BlackRock as an organization that's so big that its failure could cause another collapse, and tried to put additional oversight on them. But BlackRock doubled their political lobbying spending, including running a super targeted ad campaign on the DC Metro, and managed to dodge the oversight that other large financial institutions receive. And let's come back to that loophole they like to call passivity. The people who decide if they're passive enough to continue not to be overseen by the government is BlackRock themselves. Basically, BlackRock and other asset managers have to submit annual letters to self-certify that they've been compliant with the terms of passive investment. That's like being allowed to write whatever you want on your taxes and then audit yourself. Except if you also had $10 trillion, which, unless you're watching this and you're literally Larry Fink, hey bestie, I'm gonna safely assume you don't. The part that really blows my mind is that while this one company already has their eggs in basically every basket and is making money off seemingly everyone, it goes even deeper than that. The biggest investors in BlackRock are Vanguard and State Street. And the biggest investors in Vanguard are BlackRock and State Street. And the biggest investors in State Street are, you guessed it, BlackRock and Vanguard.
asset managers or the shareholders of asset
That's
managers.
wild.
And this is true for all financial firms.
That's actually absurd. That this is like completely legal. That is actually beyond absurd. That is completely fine and legal. Amazing. Shenanigans and Mattheans. Literally a circle jerk. Yeah, literally a circle jerk of like the capitalists. Like the capitalists.
Firms, and not only in fact for stock market listed firms, but private equity firms buying up private insurers.
So the financial sector effectively owns itself. The biggest companies that they own them back, creating this loop that sucks money in and never seems to spit it back out. They play all sides of the game because at a certain point, you can't lose when you play against yourself. So going back to our original questions, does BlackRock own everything? No. But do they control everything? Kinda. They profit off of every bit of your life while controlling just the minimum amount they need to make sure they can continue profiting off of every bit of your life. And they get paid by teachers' retirement funds to do it. And they get away with this by constantly exchanging money for power and utilizing legal loopholes. It's worth being pedantic here for a second. They don't own everything. They own shares in everything, which gives them an outsized amount of control. So while they're not necessarily the ones making all the nitty-gritty decisions in every company, it is their influence and this giant structure of universal ownership that continues to make their pie bigger and ours smaller. It's the ultimate endgame of the Investor Management Alliance. Remember the part about how they're responsible for reporting their own passivity to the government?
And there's more money in the S&P than there is in the world. Do the math. It's not fine. It's not legal. It's tolerated because disrupting it would 100% collapse the economy.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the FDA...
I mean, like... So, for all intents and purposes, then it is, right? Because it's never going to be dismantled. Not like that.
FDIC are working to change that and make it so that asset managers that own large chunks of banks like BlackRock are regulated like banks. The asset managers, of course, are not happy, and they are lobbying against this. So regulating them much further is going to prove difficult, and this is a solution to one part of a much larger problem. We no longer have the old system of shareholder democracy. We have something more like a shareholder oligarchy where the people with the most power over where our money and stuff goes are incentivized to make that stuff worse and more expensive and not work for us. But BlackRock didn't create this system, they just used it to their advantage. And I think we deserve a better one where the people who create the wealth have a say in where it goes. Thanks for watching The Classroom, where controlling the world is important to us.
Yeah, I agree. The people who create the wealth and who generate the wealth should have more of a say in what happens. Dude, I'm not gonna buy whatever this jewelry. Not gonna buy this. Stop it. We're gonna quickly go for this one. Michigan Teamsters endorse Harris Walz campaign in presidential race. So the international Teamsters did not endorse, but this local one did endorse the Harris Walz campaign. The Michigan Teamsters Union announced on yesterday evening, that it's endorsing the Harris Walz campaign in the presidential race. Michigan Teamster President Kevin Moore sent out a letter pledging strong support for the Harris Walz campaign. It comes as the International Teamsters Union declined to endorse a presidential candidate for the first time in nearly 3 decades. It says neither Democrat Kamala Harris nor Republican Donald Trump were able to make serious commitments to ensure the interests of the working people are put before big business. Moore told us why Michigan Teamsters is taking a stand. In Michigan, we understand this is a blue wall state, Moore said. We've seen 4 years of Donald Trump. It's the same old rhetoric, and we're not going back. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris gave us a vision for all people, working class people, not just Teamsters, not just unions. The Michigan Teamsters is a big-ass union, though. The Michigan Republican Party says the International Teamsters' own internal polling speaks for itself, with members choosing Trump by a margin of nearly 2-1. The MIGOP sent us the following statement. The International Teamsters poll speaks volumes. Rank-and-file Teamsters prefer President Trump because of his dedication to pro-worker policies and understanding that Teamsters are the backbone of the nation's economy. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't believe that is the case. I think that, like, maybe the union members feel that way, but that's not actually reality. If you were to ask what policies exactly has Trump done that are pro-worker, I'd wager that it'd be difficult to answer that question. And that's why 59% of Teamsters support President Trump and why they'll send him to victory in November. Sure. I support workers because you like me. Yeah, just to be clear, like, he only supports workers as so far as they'll give him their vote. That's it. That's where that relationship begins and ends. Shifting gears here, folks. Lindsey Graham visits Nebraska on behalf of the Trump campaign to push for electoral vote change. Hey, remember that thing that we were just talking about? The senator from South Carolina wants the governor to call a special session to put forward legislation that could make Nebraska a winner-take-all state in the Electoral College. Senator Lindsey Graham met Wednesday with Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen and about 24 Republican legislators to discuss how the state allocates its electoral votes, according to a source with direct knowledge of the trip. Like, that's wild. Yeah, and there's small dollar donations. That's wild. Can you imagine if there was a story about a Democratic senator going to a state and advocating or trying to push legislation that would potentially change the outcome of the election? That's freaking wild. That is freaking wild. Lady Lindsay. Graham, acting on behalf of the Trump campaign, was working to encourage Pillen to call a special legislative session at which lawmakers could consider changing the state's apportionment of electoral votes, i.e., working on behalf of the current person running for president to see if he could get a better shake. That's wild. Every state should split their electoral votes. Nebraska allocates its electoral votes by congressional district. The swing district around Omaha often goes Democrats in an otherwise ruby red state. All your electors don't choose it, so that's completely F with your election process. Right, but like particularly with the end game of giving me at least 1 or 2 electors. Wednesday's meeting, previously reported by KOLN TV, took place in Lincoln. Graham's office confirmed the local report but declined to comment further. If Nebraska were to switch to a winner-take-all system, it would almost certainly give former President Trump an extra electoral vote in what is expected to be a tight presidential race. That one electoral vote could prove decisive. Right, like that's exactly it, man. That's wild that they're doing this. I mean, I have to ask. Is that legal? where you could have a surrogate. First of all, a sitting senator acting on the behalf of a current candidate of the candidate of the party's candidate, going around to advocate for a change in the way that a state does their elections, with the goal and the intention of changing or potentially affecting the outcome of the election. How is that okay? How is that okay? It doesn't feel like something that should be. Right before the election, too. Exactly. Wolf Glen, welcome. California would be a problem if by district. If Vice President Kamala Harris wins Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, but loses every other swing state, she and Trump would be tied at 269 electoral votes under a winner-takes-all setup in Nebraska, with Trump winning the state. In that scenario, the race would be thrown to the U.S. House, where each state delegation would get one vote for president. Republicans do hold the majority of delegations and are favored to retain it, even though the House majority could change hands after the November election. Pillen, a Republican, was receptive to Graham's overtures Wednesday and indicated that he would call a special session if he thought he had the votes. Pillen had previously expressed that sentiment. Quote, as I have consistently made clear, I have strongly support statewide unity and joining 48 other states and awarding all 5 of our electoral college votes to the presidential candidate who wins the majority of Nebraskan votes. Yeah, but like the point being is that you're not doing this for the sake of democracy. You're doing this because you think that it might be beneficial to your guy in your party. That's the problem. The problem is Kamala was tasked to prevent this in 2021, so it's not okay, but it is legal, unfortunately. The forefathers did not expect to have 2/3 of part of the government get completely corrupted. The Senate does whatever the F it wants. Yeah, no doubt about it. Quote, as I have consistently made clear, I strongly support statewide unity and joining 48 other states by awarding all 5 of our electoral college votes to the presidential candidate who wins the majority of Nebraskan votes, Pillen said in a statement last week. As I've also made clear, I'm willing to convene the legislature for a special session to fix this 30-year-old problem before the 2024 election. He added that he has not yet received the concrete public indication that 33 state senators would vote for the winner-take-all system. Supporters of the legislation have long said they do not yet have enough backing to overcome a procedural hurdle that has been previously prevented the bill from passing. The Trump campaign has not responded to questions about Graham's role in Nebraska. Pillen's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment Wednesday night. Trump has publicly pushed for the state to switch to a winner-take-all system, saying this year it would be right for Nebraska. Yeah, sure, dude. It has nothing to do with the fact that this literally may have an impact on the outcome of the election that you need to go your way, because otherwise you're screwed. The effort to move the state to a winner-take-all failed earlier this year over procedural issues. Maine is the only other state that does not have a winner-take-all system for the electoral votes. The Democratic State House Majority Leader has said the state should consider switching to a winner-take-all electoral system. Electoral vote system itself as a counter if Nebraska moves to change its system. Yeah, fair is fair, I guess. Thought Cali was on a partial system. No. All right, folks, we got to talk about what's been going on in Florida, and then we'll talk about the North Carolina story involving Mark Robinson. So we'll start with the Florida one, and then we'll get over to the North Carolina one. This one is pretty. It's a dark subject, not really necessarily like dark material, but yeah. This one came courtesy of the Discord of thank you, Mr. Heat, for posting this one on the Discord. Quite frankly, since the shooting that happened in Georgia, there have been a lot of fake threats. A couple that were real. And even here in Georgia, there was a threat that happened at the local high school that was ended up being fake. But after that attack, a lot, and especially in Florida, some of my friends there were also talking about this. It is absolutely out of control. This is not okay. This is not okay at all. Florida law enforcement and education officials in Florida are dealing with a flood of threats against K through 12 schools this fall and are taking drastic measures to protect students. A growing number of students are turning to metal detectors to thwart students from bringing weapons on campus grounds, as a string of students arrests across the state have local leaders on high alert. And sheriffs, frustrated by a wave of school shooting threats pouring into schools, have decided to dish out public embarrassment to parents and students, some as young as 11 years old, who break Florida school safety laws. Yeah, just give all the teachers and teachers, kids, and infants the AK-47s. That'll solve it. These incidents of threatened school violence appear to have only ramped up since the Georgia high school shooting, which, yeah, that's exactly... This has been happening specifically after that. Yeah, armed the fetus too. Where 4 people were killed, spreading fear through the communities while disrupting education for students across the state. Quote, "This is absolutely out of control and it ends now," said Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood on Friday after 2 students were arrested for threatening school violence. You don't stand up on an airplane and yell hijack, you don't walk into a movie theater and yell fire, and you don't get to go online and post that you're going to shoot up a school. It's going to get you sent to jail. Florida has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on school safety improvements and introduced numerous policy shifts since the Parkland High School shooting rocked the state 6 years ago when a gunman killed 17 people. Most notably, the Republican leaders cleared the way for schools to arm employees, including teachers, with firearms to meet a state law requiring to be at least 1 armed guard on every campus. Phenomenal. I had to add the sarcasm because Republicans will take it serious and try it. They did. Look, they even passed a law arming employees, including teachers. So, yeah, great job, guys. So far this fall, the state school safety resources are being put to the test as threats and tips about potential violence pour into campuses. Most have been declared hoaxes that are non-credible, and yet those instances still led to students being arrested for disrupted school safety and can lead to expulsion. There have also been several students arrested across the state since the school began this year for bringing weapons on campus. Quote, "If people are issuing some threats like an idle threat, we take that very seriously. Even if you have no intent on following through with it," said Governor DeSantis on Monday when asked about the issue at an event in Orlando. "That creates a lot of consternation in the community. It creates a lot of anxiety with parents, and we will absolutely hold you responsible." Yeah, let's have guns in the school so they don't have to take it through the metal detector. Right, they're already there. Like, what back-asswards way of handling this is? Like, instead of trying to focus on, like, the actual issue, like, the way I've heard it being talked about is, like, if you see two kids, what was the analogy? If you see two kids hitting each other with sticks, you don't give sticks to every other kid and hope that they'll keep each other in check. You take the sticks away from the kids. Does that make sense? The threats have spanned the state, with students as young as 11 posting about school shootings on Instagram and other social media platforms as new cases emerge by day. After a flurry of threats last week, at least 5 students were arrested across Florida on Monday. Among those arrests were 2 15-year-olds warned online they would shoot up their respective high schools, one in Tampa and one in St. John. Authorities in both cases determined the students did not have access to firearms. Threats of violence prompted widespread absences last week in Tallahassee, with more than 1,000 students missing class at one point at one high school and a quarter of students at another, according to Leon County Schools. The school district received at least 500 tips surrounding vague threats on social media that are found to be bogus, but there have also been Leon students arrested for having loaded guns at the school. That's wild. Wild. If they held classes in a gun test range, would have less chance of hitting one of those kids with a bullet than sending them to school at this rate. Sheesh. Yeah. No doubt. Parents, your children are safe. I promise you they're safe, said Leon Superintendent Rocky Hanna. Told reporters during a September 13 conference, when we start not sending kids to school because of these fears, then bad guys win. As law enforcement and leader groups urge parents to take heed and students to stop issuing fake threats, Chitwood and Volusia County decided to publicly display shocking images of young students being arrested to demonstrate the punishment that it brings. Chitwood's agency on Monday posted arrests and booking footage of a mugshot of an 11-year-old Port Orange student who made threats against 2 local middle schools. While Florida law enforcement is known to publicly detail arrests on social media, these cases don't usually involve minors. The student had a list of names and targets, the sheriff department said, and was in possession of airsoft guns, fake ammunition, and several swords and knives that he showed students. He told authorities it was all a joke, but now faces a felony charge of making a written threat of a mass shooting. I can and will release the names and photos of juveniles who are committing these felonies, threatening our students and disrupting the schools and consuming law enforcement resources, said Chitwood. Law enforcement in Putnam County, just north of Volusia, is taking similar actions and have already this week posted the mugshot of 2 minors who were arrested for threatening school shootings. In the latest case, an 11-year-old was arrested Monday night for displaying realistic-looking airsoft guns in a message telling students to not go to school tomorrow. Both students arrested in Putnam were told investigators that these threats were a joke. Yeah, like, is this some kind of freaking TikTok challenge? Like, seriously? Because, like, what the actual, what the heck? Like, is this some kind of TikTok challenge to see if you get booted off school? Like, I'm confused here. This is absurd. The kids are safe. We send the white kids with ballistic vests at least. We, like the parents, you know, it's so sad. They actually make products. They actually make backpacks. They actually make backpacks with, you know, where you would normally have a laptop sleeve. They actually make backpacks where you put ballistic armor, for the lack of a better, yeah, it's armor. Instead of the laptop sleeve, you put the bulletproof stuff. Yeah, you've seen them. Yeah. Like that's pretty freaking wild. I suppose you never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Fucking make money out of it. Jesus Christ. We, like the parents who entrust the school system with our children, do not find this funny, said Putnam County Sheriff's Office on social media. We will continue to arrest and post photos of students who commit these felonies. Under Florida public record, a juvenile arrested for a felony subject to have their name and photo released. The threat of weapons entering campus has led to more schools pursuing metal detectors as a deterrent. Broward County started school this year with new metal detectors, causing some delays at massive school district with long lines to attend class early in the school year. Others, such as Brevard County, are rolling them out now on the heels of the campus shooting in Georgia earlier this month. Florida schools can use metal detectors as they see fit, DeSantis said on Monday, while acknowledging they can be an interruption for students. Yet that metal detectors are not something we'd mandate in Florida. They also make panic rooms and states pay for them to be put in Catholic tuition schools. Yep. What a stupid country this is. Yep. This is, by the way, this is a unique problem here. Florida takes school safety more seriously than any country, than any state in the country, said DeSantis. We've done more to invest in resources, where it's school resource officers and other accountants that can help deter anything happening at our schools. They need lab meat detectors. Very normal country we got going on here. Very normal and very hinged. You know, that's pretty freaking sad. I had a train of thought and then it just disappeared. All right, folks, we have one more story. The North Carolina story is happening, all right? For those of you that don't know, a bombshell reporting has dropped about the Republican candidate for governor, Mark Robinson. And at this time, the official response... North Carolina, that's me. Reading Rap, welcome. At this time, the candidate, Mark Robinson, has decided that he's going to stay in the race. So let's get into it. This was a CNN reporting that dropped earlier this morning. And I lived in Welcome, North Carolina for a few years. Quote, I'm a black Nazi. I'm signing off, boys and girls. I value my mental health too much today. Oh, this one's a doozy, so I completely understand. This one's a doozy, so I completely understand. I'm a black Nazi, said GOP nominee for governor, made dozens of disturbing comments on a prawn forum. Yeah, that's just waiting for the leopards. Mark Robinson, the controversial and socially conservative Republican nominee. Yeah, that's about as nice as you can word it. Republican nominee for North Carolina has made a series of inflammatory comments on pornography messages on pornography website's message board more than a decade ago, in which he referred to himself as a black Nazi and expressed support for reinstating slavery. Despite a recent history of anti-trans rhetoric, Robinson said he enjoyed watching trans porn, and a review of archived messages found in which he also referred to himself as a perv. I mean, like, is this really, like, surprising to anybody? Is this really surprising to anybody? The comments, which Robinson denies making, predate his entry into politics and current stint as North Carolina's lieutenant governor. They're made under a username that CNN was able to verify as Robinson by matching a litany of biographical details and shared email addresses between the two. Many of Robinson's comments were gratuitously sexual and lewd in nature. They were made between 2008 and 2012 on Nude Africa, a prawn site that includes a message board. The comments were made under the username Minnesota Mini Soldier? I don't know. A moniker Robinson uses frequently online. Robinson listed his full name on his profile for Nude Africa, as well as an email address used on numerous websites across the internet for decades. CNN is only reporting a small portion of Robinson's comments on the website, given their graphic nature. Yeah. If you want to see like the actual full reporting, I'm gonna post the link there. You can also check it on the Discord. I will post this on the Discord as well. Oh wait, it's already there. No, it's not. I will post it on the Discord later. What is wrong with all these GOP people? You want a list? So this is proof that he was that this is his username and that he has consistently used this username across different profiles. Many of Robinson's comments on Nude Africa stand in contrast to his public stances on issues such as abortion and transgender rights. Good news, Kamal is linking him directly to Trump in the photos. Oh yeah, 100%. Like that's the play. 100%. Like this by the way might single-handedly torpedo North Carolina. The Kanye brain is a contagious disease, it seems. This might single-handedly torpedo North Carolina. Publicly, Robinson has fiercely argued that people should use bathrooms that only correspond to the gender they were assigned at birth. He also said that transgender women should be arrested for using the women's bathroom. Quote, if you're a man on Friday night and all of a sudden Saturday you feel like a woman and want to go into the women's bathroom in the mall, you'll be arrested or whatever we got to do to you, said Robinson at a campaign rally in February of 2024. 7 months ago, we're going to protect our women. Yet privately under the username Minnesota on Nude Africa, Robinson graphically described his own sexual... Oh God, this is going to be a little bit tough to read. His own sexual arousal as an adult from memory of secretly peeping on women in public showers as a 14-year-old. Ooh. Robinson recounted the story as a memory he said he still fantasized about. Quote, I came to a spot that was a dead end but had two big vent covers over it. It just happened it overlooked the showers. I sat there for an hour and watched as several girls came in and showered. CNN is not publishing the graphic sexual details of Robinson's story. Thank you. We have been spared of the skin-crawling details. I went peeping again the next morning, but after I went back to the ladder, I was locked. So those 2 times were the only times I got to do it. If a person that is not the physical sex at birth going into the opposite changing room as it should be arrested, then lock up Trump. In other comments, it's bad. Kamikaze, it's bad. In other comments on Nude Africa, Robinson discussed his affinity for trans porn. I like watching trans porn. That is effing hot. It takes the man out while leaving the man in. And yeah, I'm a perv too. Okay. Just to be clear, like, hey man, that's cool. But like, why have you gone on such a hateful tirade against trans people, right? If you find them attractive. Like, just to be clear, like, the fact that a lot of these, it's not just him, by the way, a lot of these conservatives end up being like people who consume a lot of trans porn and who are into trans people. Like, hey, you know, there's literally nothing wrong with that. You being attracted to a trans person is, there's literally nothing wrong with that. If that's you, that's you. The problem is that he's going around and making these people, making trans people, gay people, anyone who is not Christian, their lives miserable. Some people are so twisted that they hate themselves and others. Yeah, Rules for thee and not for me. Agreed. In an interview on CNN on Thursday, Robinson repeatedly denied that he made these comments on Nude Africa, despite them clearly being his username. Come on, man. Come on. And this is not anything... this is not us. These are not our words. And this is not anything that is characteristic of me, said Robinson. Presented with the litany of evidence connecting him with the Minnesota username on Nude Africa, Robinson said, I'm not going to get into the minutiae of how somebody manufactured these salacious tabloid lies. Yeah, sure, dude. Sure. CNN first reached out to Robinson on Tuesday morning with evidence connecting him to the comments on Nude Africa. It took his campaign 2 days to respond and issue a denial. During his interview with CNN, Robinson repeatedly said that the issues faced North Carolinians were more important than what he called tabloid trash, and he steered the conversation toward attacking his opponent in the race, Democrat Josh Stein, the state's attorney general. Quote, we're not getting out of this race, and these people are counting on us to win this race. Campaigning for lieutenant governor in 2020, Robinson advocated for a complete abortion ban without exceptions. He later expressed regret in 2022 for paying his now wife to have an abortion in the 80s. Like, again... right? Like, it's the same concept, right? Rules for thee and not for me. I got mine, and I made sure that my wife had access to the health care that she needed, but screw everybody else. That's wild. Now campaigning for governor, he says he supports the so-called heartbeat bill that would ban abortion when a heartbeat is detected approximately 6 weeks, with exceptions for rape, incest, and the health of the mother. But writing as a Minnesoter on Nude Africa in December of 2010, Robinson said he did not care about a celebrity having an abortion. Right, because deep down, I mean, he helped pay for one. I don't care, I just want to see the sex tape. In another thread, commenters considered whether to believe the story of a woman who said she was raped by her taxi driver while intoxicated. In response, Robinson wrote, and the moral of the story is don't F a white B word. Such a nice guy. Yeah. Heartbeat bill, then we can abort Republicans because they don't have a heart. Robinson, who would become North Carolina's first black governor if elected, also repeatedly maligned civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., attacking him in such intense terms that a user accused him of being a white supremacist. Get that effing commie bastard off the National Mall, said Robinson about the dedication of the memorial to King in Washington, D.C. by then President Obama. I'm not in the KKK. They don't let blacks join. If I was in the KKK, I would have called them Martin Lucifer K-word. Ooh. CNN's reporting on Robinson's comments comes a few weeks after the Assembly, a North Carolina digital publication, reported that Robinson frequented local video prawn shops between 1990s and 2000s. The story cited 6 people who interacted and saw him frequent the stores in Greensboro, North Carolina. A spokesperson for Robinson called the story false and complete fiction. You know what? I don't think so. Despite earning the full endorsement of former President Trump and North Carolina Republican Party, Robinson faces an uphill battle in the race for governor against Stein. Robinson's history of controversial remarks, including mocking school shooting survivors, his past support for total abortion bans without exceptions for rape and incest, and disparaging the civil rights movement have been consistent themes in the race. Recent public polling shows Robinson is losing to Stein. KKK and Nazi are different groups, but quite often that Venn diagram is very close. On the Nude Africa website, in both comments and his profile, the Minnesoter offered numerous details that align precisely with Robinson's personal history. In his profile, Minnesota listed his full name as Mark Robinson and disclosed a private email address Robinson used elsewhere online. In 2012, a user responded to a comment by calling Minnesota Mark. Minnesota mentioned in 2008 being married for 18 years, which corresponds to Robinson's marriage to Yolanda Hill in 1990. In 2011, Minnesota wrote that he had been married 21 years. Minnesota wrote in 2011 in a 2011 post that he lived in Greensboro, North Carolina, the same town where Robinson lived at the at the time and currently lives. So there's the evidence corroborating the timeline. CNN censored some graphic language and slurs. The graphic only includes select examples. Yeah. In a post of 2012, Minnesota said he served in the Army in the 1980s during the same time period as Robinson. In his sexually graphic comments detailing watching women in showers in 2011, whoa, Jesus. And just saying he said he was a Nazi and then denied joining the KKK. In his sexually graphic comments detailing watching women in showers in 2011, Minnesota wrote that his mother worked in historically black college and university. Robinson's mother worked as a custodian at North Carolina A&T State University and HBCU located in Greensboro. Both Minnesota and Robinson often posted about the same topics online, including reviews for remote-controlled helicopters, their attraction to specific celebrities, and their favorite Twilight Zone episode. The email address associated with Minnesota on Nude Africa is also used by Robinson elsewhere online and social media. Bro, dude is cooked. That's him. That is him. Username and email addresses from Disqus were publicly leaked in 2017, according to the company. CNN confirmed that Robinson's username Minnesota on Disqus shared the same email address as one used in Nude Africa. Robinson's Disqus page is also linked to the black social networking site Black Planet. The web archive shows a username Minnesota who described themselves as a 40-year-old in February 2009, the same age as Robinson at the time, and living in Greensboro, Robinson's hometown. Robinson has frequently used the name Minnesota somewhere elsewhere on the internet, on Twitter. Robinson once used the Minnesota. I'm just gonna call him Mini Soldier. Jesus. According to a screenshot shared on Facebook in 2018 and data in Robinson's old tweets. A YouTube playlist for username Mini Soldier features exclusive videos of Robinson. On Pinterest. A user quote Mini Soldier lists his name as Mark Robinson. The Mini Soldier username has also posted reviews of products and places Robinson has also publicly recommended. On Amazon, a username Mini Soldier reviewed products frequently shared by Robinson on Facebook, including remote-controlled helicopters, and the same email address and username used on Nude Africa also left reviews on Google for two local businesses Robinson later posted on Facebook that he used. Bro's cooked. That's him. No doubt about it. Robinson's unique choice of language further links him to the Mini Soldier alias on the prawn forums. Uncommon phrases such as "gaggy maggot," "dunderhead," "I don't give a frogs," "I don't give two shakes of it" were both used by Mini Soldier on Nude Africa and by Robinson in his own personal Facebook page. And there's... the prawn forums, Robinson revealed his unvarnished thoughts on issues such as race, gender, and abortion. Writing in forums discussing black Republicans in October of 2010, Robinson stated unprovoked, "I'm a black Nazi." The same month, Robinson wrote in another post that he supports the return of slavery. Quote, "Slavery is not that bad. Some people need to be slaves, and I wish they would bring slavery back. I would certainly buy a few." In March of 2012, Robinson wrote that he preferred the former leader of Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler, over the leadership in Washington during the administration of Barack Obama. Quote, "I'd take Hitler over any of the ish that's in Washington right now." What a swell guy. Robinson comment on Nude Africa frequently contained derogatory and racial slurs directed at black, Jewish, and Muslim people. In a series of posts in October of 2011, Robinson disparaged MLK in such an intense term, calling him a commie bastard, worse than a maggot, a ho effing phony, and a huckster. That a user in a thread accused him of being in the KKK. Which then Robinson responded by directing a slur at King. In 2010, Robinson used the anti-Semitic slur Hebe. I've actually never heard this one. This one's new. This one's real. This one's news to me. That's less than 30 minutes where I lived. Jeez. Real life Clayton Bigsby. Oh, you don't pronounce the last E. Hebe. Got it. When discussing how he liked the show Good Times, developed by Norman Lear, saying it, the show itself was a bunch of written liberal BS. While discussing the Taliban, he referred to Muslims as little rag-headed bastards and said that if Muslims took over, libs would be the first ones to be beheaded. Robinson also used the homophobic slur, frequently calling others the F slur. And a large, that slur. Yeah, I've never heard this one before. Yeah, I've never heard this one. This one's new to me. Funny how they censor ass, but not that. Yeah. In a large positive forum discussion featuring a photo of two men kissing after one returned from military deployment, Robinson wrote the sole negative comment that that's some old... Yeah, well, there you go. An Archie Bunker slur. Literally right after a move in North Carolina, they found a black man hung from a tree with no ladder in Lexington. They claimed it was suicide when there was no way to do it himself. The area has a decent supply of racists. Yeah. I see that. Wild. And by the way, they censored a lot of this stuff because of the graphic nature and the amount of slurs that were used. This is just a fraction of the stuff. So holy cow. I mean, quite frankly, is any of this really surprising? Coming from Mark Robinson, going from like publicly made comments denying, like engaging in Holocaust denial, all the way from now, like just frequently using like anti-Semitic slurs, anti-queer slurs, anti-black slurs. I mean, like, is any like this is not like a massive revelation, but like the fact that it's now all out in the open, really is going to in my opinion, single-handedly torpedo North Carolina. That's I'm calling it right now. This right here is going to single-handedly torpedo. Like that's the nail in the coffin. Mark Robinson was already in the on the back foot. Mark Robinson was already on the back foot, but this, I think, is the nail in the coffin, in my opinion. Whew. Let's hope. I thought the Access Hollywood tape was a nail in the coffin in 2016. You never know. That's a good point. Although this, you know, this is on a whole level, and Mark Robinson is not Trump. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that this a-hole doesn't get the win, and if we're lucky, we get a 2-for-1 special, and if we're lucky, we get a 2-for-1 special and this brings down the presidential ticket in North Carolina, because Trump endorsed this guy. Enough people have to hear about the report and believe it and care. I mean, if the Democrats do their job and link this to Robinson and Trump and keep hammering it, North Carolina is, I mean, in such limited time, yeah, that's also the case. We got less than 2 months. Whew. Well, that was a bit rough to get through, but we did. That was a bit rough, but we got through it. Holy heck. All right. It's time for me to get going, folks. Thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate it. If you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. We're very close to 2,500 followers, or 2.5K. I don't know why Dems have not hammered Trump. Should be on camera, not within miles of a school list. Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you, Kamikaze. I appreciate you stopping by. Thank you all for hanging out. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the subscriptions and things like that. Please, if you have a moment, don't forget, hit the follow button on here. And on the YouTube, folks, keep hitting the like button. I see you guys on the YouTube. Thank you. I appreciate it. Subscribe on the YouTube. We're one subscriber away from 260. Thank you, Michael Hassler, for modding the chat. I appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, there are many different ways. Consider checking out the merch store and hitting that exclamation mark tip. You can actually tip your streamer directly. Thank you, Globus Elder, for hanging out. I appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, folks. Thank you all. I appreciate it. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll be back Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. Good timing, too, because my voice is... have a good weekend, too. My voice is done. Hang tight, folks. Alright, folks, we're heading out. Oop, there we go. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.